Like I was kind of curious what you thought was a mark of great audio design, game design that is implementing audio.
The comedy answer is that you don't notice it,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
right? Uh, that you only notice bad audio, and that when it's good, it's not even there. Yeah, so I would say that that's probably true from a surface level interpretation. Like for someone who's not tuned to audio, and I think that is a goal to a certain level for people who share these experiences but don't share the development or don't share the professional understanding of it. I
yeah.
think that probably is the goal, that they don't even notice it. So
Sure.
so what is it for me though, as someone who is maybe tuned to that? And this is
Yeah,
where, I would also say that if I'm so lost in an experience that I don't even notice, that's probably okay. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
wasn't bad enough to pull me out. Uh, and if I do stop to engage my professional brain in a critique of the audio,
Hmm.
like what I hope is that it responds in a dynamic and natural way.
Hmm.
And what that means, an example of the opposite would be crossing a line and having the ambient change
Ah, yeah, yeah.
between indoors and outdoors, let's say. Like that is an old trick. It's been done a million times in a million games to great effect, and most people probably will never notice it. And if they close the door behind you, you'll never notice it. But if you have the agency to move back and forth across that line and play with the system in a way that's not realistic, then uh, then it doesn't meet my expectation of what good interactive audio should be. It doesn't respond dynamically in a believable way. So that's maybe my hot take.
It's interesting to hear from someone who lives and breathes the technical sound design in this case. How can you get the games to sound a certain way? How can you improve upon what's been done? How can you make this feel more realistic, or improve the experience by enhancing the responsivity of the music, or the sound effects, or just the sense of being in a world or a space with the game systems. Because that's something that, like, I know that I, at least, and I think Justin as well, we occasionally put on our developer hats and we'll look at the audio and try to play with the interactivity and see it, but not being industry, like hands-on with the implementations, we just don't, we kind of have a basic high-level overview and understanding of how that might have been built, how it interacts with other games. But it's great to hear that the critique from someone with that experience about how that critiquing happens when you're playing a game, and what are you looking for and kind of seeing in that. So kind of along
I
those.
did a couple things actually. I did a footstep sound study and a racing game sound study.
What? Explain.
Yeah. So again, this is me on my way to gaining experience in my field of interest, right?
Okay.
This is me not really knowing how all the cool tricks are done, and me trying to understand through the lens of the screen and these games that I'm playing, what's happening, right?
Right.
It's like in any discipline where you tune a critical ear or eye to what it is that you're passionate about, right? Whether it's dissecting color grading in a film, or looking for the boom microphone in the reflection of a window, whatever it is, right? Counting pixels on a screen, right? And so I did, the first sound study I did was footsteps. And I took probably a dozen games that I had. Current crop, I had access to a bunch of games because I was teaching at a technical college for a year, and they had a library. So took advantage of that, grabbed a dozen current games, did a bunch of video recording, and then lined them up in a video editor kind of side by side. So here we ended up in a place where, oh, actually there's a few different kinds of footstep, what I would call footstep games, right?
Sure. Yeah.
This was during the first wave of Assassin's Creed. Prince of Persia just came out. So you had, I had a few representations of a third person game that used parkour and traversal as one of their core mechanics. So okay, there's a lot to dissect there. And then let's look at a few first person games. So we got Borderlands in there, and I don't know, some other things, right? Oh, that's its own thing. And let's see how those compare to each other, and on until I had built out an understanding of at least some of the finer points of what different games were doing, how they were using footsteps, what level of detail their footstep systems were going to. And I'm always listening for that. Where does it fall down? Where does this break down from my expectation of the reactive dynamism of my interaction, right? And so, you compare, it was Assassin's Creed and Prince of Persia, right? These are two similar games, but very clearly going aesthetically in a totally different direction. And that's true all the way down to the way that they implemented movement and Foley. Do they both have footsteps? Yeah. Do they both got cloth rustling? Yeah, sure. But it's like when you stack them next to each other, it's super easy. It was easier with that level of focus to hear the difference, not just of the sound content and the aesthetic choices that they were making, but also the implementation choices they were making. And probably someone at Ubisoft will say, well, the same team did both, but they're different games. They're different games, and so they have a different expression of the implementation. And I know it's getting super geeky and in the weeds to say that, but everything from, does the sound of the cloth Foley play out longer than the movement of the character on screen?
Yeah.
Which is something that you could say, well, if you're listening hard enough, that shit doesn't line up. And guess what? You broke my reality. So from the lens of the screen, I was able to kind of take my time during that time when I had time.
Yeah.
And dig deep into that level of detail to get at least an understanding of some of the ways that that it could be improved.